Hey, welcome. This is Tech Ed Kirsch. If you don't know, I am also a Python developer for like the last few years now, since 2018. Okay. I've been using Python and also C. I've been programming in C and C++ and those in assembly since 2010. And I've also taught at university for programming. Okay. Embedded programming, but I've been doing data science projects. And what I want to do, what I want to show you is how to get started in Python, how to get started in programming so that you can become an AI engineer and data scientist. We're going to be doing a couple of projects, and in 10 minutes, you're going to have some practical examples to take home with you as far as programming in Python. So without further ado, let's get started. You're going to be making a grocery list. You're going to understand how the calculator works. You'll also be doing a little bit of code to see how to view design files. Then you'll have this thing where you import a CSV and can analyze or look at the data. Finally, we're going to plot some data. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, you don't have to install Python to get started. All you have to do is go into Google Colab. So we're going to go and search Google and then type in, I'm going to change my profile here. We're going to type in Google Colab. Okay. Once you have Google Colab pulled up, we're going to sign in with your Google account, then click New Notebook. Okay. Click New Notebook. All right. Now we're going to do some project examples. Let me pull over my thing over here and I'm going to explain what's going on. So the first example is by default, we're going to be in Python. Okay, Python is one of the most popular language, if not the most popular programming language that's hot out today, especially if you're going to be a data scientist or AI engineer. Okay, there's also R as a data scientist, but we won't get into that. Let's get started. So here we have, I'm going to start you off with some foundations, some building blocks. You can do addition in Python. And then what you can do once you type that in, 3 plus 3, you click on this run symbol, and then it's going to do the output for you. This is taking longer than I expected. Okay, it gives me 6. So next, let's delete this 3 and we're going to give it a 7. Hit a shortcut is to hold on the shift key and hit enter. Then that will give you the output. That's 7. But let's take this up a notch. We want to be able to store this information, this data into a variable, into a part of memory. And so to represent that, we type in letters. This is a letter X that I'm going to use. And X automatically allocates, like it doesn't really know what this is, but X automatically allocates some memory somewhere to say, hey, I'm going to find this little piece in memory to store some information. To do that, to store 3 plus 7 inside here, we're going to type the equal sign. Okay. It's not this. So you don't type 3 plus 7 equals X. Programming doesn't work that way. The syntax is you got to put the variable in front and then put your equal and then put whatever you want on the right side that you're going to store inside the location that X is pointing to. Okay. So X is pointing to somewhere in memory. We're going to calculate the value 10. Dump it in wherever X is pointing to. Okay. Then you hit the run. Now check out what happens here. If I hit run, nothing appears. Why is that? Because we've just done an operation where we stored a value in the X location. What we need to do is now display what's in the X location. So hit enter, then type X. That's the new line here. Now we're telling the program, the environment, the IDE, to show me what's in this X here, show X. Okay, we're going to hold on to shift enter and boom, voila, it's shown. Now, we could do some other things too here. If we go to the next line, we could do things like print statement. A print statement allows you to produce a text of some kind, right? Or produce, words. So we're going to open parentheses and then double quotes, then type in hello world. That's what you typically see with most tutorials. And then you hold on the shift key, press enter, and it produces a hello world. With this bare stuff in mind, we learn one more concept, and that is array Why do we want to learn array? Because what I'm going to show you for this grocery list that we're going to make, it's going to make all the sense. It's only going to make sense once you understand a bit of array. So check this out. When I have, say, y, I want to make y, and inside the y location, I'm going to put some text that says hello world, right? And this is called a string. And then in the next line, I'm going to say I want to show y, hold on the shift and enter keys, and then you see hello world. But a string is an array. If you come from C, or C programming language or not, doesn't matter. There are these positions. The string is actually a bunch of characters stuck together, and they have their different positions. You can call it position number 1 for H, E is in position number 2, L is in 3, second L is in position 4, 5. The space counts too as a character, 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the space and so on. But in programming environments and programming languages, they start from 0. So we're going to start with H is in 0 position, E is in position 1, L is in position 2, and so on. Okay, with that information in mind, let's do something. You can open brackets. I don't know why I'm looking at the wrong camera. Okay, you can open brackets. I don't even know which camera I'm supposed to be looking at. And then you type in 0. Okay, you have a brackets open on the left and right. What does this mean? Y is holding, it's pointing to the memory location that has hello world, this string of characters, okay? Let's look at position 0 of what's being held in that memory. That's going to give us H, okay? So if you hold on the shift key and hit enter, boom, voila, we get H. And then if you want to print that as text, now there's a subtle difference, but it matters. See this right here, this H? When it's in that single quotes, it's letting us know that that's what's stored in memory. Technically, to make it visible to the naked eye, see, this wouldn't show up normally. Okay, to make it naked to the visible eye, visible to the naked eye, we would type print around it, open parentheses, and wrap that in a close parentheses right there. Now hold on to shift and enter, and voila. Now the H is actually displayed. So if you were in a terminal, the first H would not be shown, but this H is shown. Okay, so let's see how we're doing. Okay, we're probably not gonna hit the 10-minute mark, or we're gonna go past the 10-minute mark, but that's okay. And let's see just how quickly we can get this done. So now with those 3 concepts being explained, we're gonna make a grocery list. We'll call it groceries equals. And then I'm going to give a list here. We want milk, and I'll put a comma, bread, and then we want eggs. Voila. And then here, I'm going to implement something called a for loop. So for item, really item could be any name, and it could be for I, for counter, whatever. But this is a counter that goes through a list. Okay, so for item, or whatever, in the list called groceries. Okay, why am I calling it a list? Because a list is anything you put in open brackets. You put a bunch of things in this list. You could put some text in here. You could put the number 3, the number 5. You could put a Boolean values like true and everything in here, and that'll be a list of things. Okay, but I'm just going to put some text in this list. And what I'm saying here, there's a function called for that loops through a list. Don't worry about where it comes from. It's native to Python and any programming language, really. You say for the first item, the first thing inside of this list, groceries, we're going to do an action. Let's go to the new line, and it's going to indent for me automatically. That's why I like Google Colab. And you type print. We're going to print something. We're going to print the text that says buy. Okay? Now, when we run this, you may expect this to print buy. It will, but check this. Let me explain what the for loop does. The for loop will iterate. It will go through and start like going through everything inside of this list of stuff with this syntax. So for item or for the first object or the 0th object in this list, you're going to print the word by. Then this thing called item, it's going to increase by 1 and say, let's increase by 1. And now for the, not the 0th item, but the first item or item but for the position 1 thing in this list, then we're going to go in and print by again. And then it's going to increment to number 2 here. Then it's going to repeat that and say, so now that we're number 2, we're going to go in position 2 within this list and then print by. And then it will no longer increment because that's the end of the list. And that's it. So it's going to print by how many times? A 0th time, a first time, and a second time. So 3 times. Okay, now let's hit Shift and Enter. Voila. That's what comes out. Fantastic. Now let's add to this. We're gonna make this a little more interesting. So hit a comma in there. With print, you can print multiple things. Okay, you can print multiple things. It doesn't need to just be text. Let's say I want to print the 0th item in the list, or the first item in the list, or the second item in this list, you know, along with buy. Maybe I want to say buy milk 3 times. Let's go ahead and do it. So how would we do that? We'd use the array method. Okay, so we need to grab this list, and let's say I want to print milk 3 times. We need to call this groceries. That's the list. Open brackets. Milk is position 0. Okay, it's found in position 0 of that list. So it's going to print what? Buy milk 3 times. Let's hit Shift and Enter. There you go. Now there's one more thing we can do to capitalize on this for loop. And this is the whole point of the for loop. It's to iterate through all of these members in the list, these names in the list. So what trick can we use? I want to automatically increase this counter. I want to print the 0th item, the first item, and the second item. How can I do that? Can I find something that automatically increases its number each time? Ah, yes, this thing we called item. Okay. Now what you can do, what you may be thinking is, hey, I'm just going to put the word item in here. I'm just going to put item in here where the 0 is, and it's going to work that way, right? I'm not so sure. What you can do is simply this. Let me show you. So we're going to, instead of doing this, what's really happening is item is already going into the list and saying and pointing to the position, the item that's in that list. So if you were to put the word item inside the position, an item is pointing into the position, it's going to cause an issue. Okay. So what we need to do is just say item. Item will automatically be equivalent to, just to give you an idea, item turns into automatically groceries 0. Then it increments to item becomes groceries 1. Okay. So we don't want to put groceries 0 inside groceries 0. That would be weird. That wouldn't work too great because this isn't a multi-dimensional matrix. Okay. This is a 1 by 3 matrix. Okay. So that won't work. All right. So now what we're going to do is go with this, hit the Shift and Enter keys, and boom, we get buy milk, buy bread, buy eggs. Fantastic. Okay, I know that explanation took a while, but now that we have our foundation, we can do a lot more. Let's continue. Let's say you wanted to import a CSV file, a .csv. You can type in import pandas. Oh, and by the way, before we even get into that, how would this be useful? Well, you can, if you have local code, like if you're in local files, right, you can use this code. Let me show you. I have some code here that if you were to be on your local machine instead of in the cloud, even if you are in the cloud, you could import whatever the operating system you're working on, its functions. Then you can say in OS, you can list the directory, what all is in the directory, and then store that into a variable called file. See, we talked about variables earlier. And then in this for loop here, it doesn't matter what you call this. This could be item, F, whatever. People like to use item. For F in files, files is a list. Now it's a list of the files that you stored in here. This generates a list, puts it in this list. F, it starts at position 0. What's the 0th file we found? What's the first file? So on and so forth. It's going to iterate through that in the for loop. Every time we iterate through it, we'll say print found file, boom, found file 0, found file 1, file 2, file 3, so on and so forth. If you were to run this, hit shift enter, wherever configuration is on this Google environment, it pulled two files, .config and sample data. Okay, so that's just to show you how for loops, understanding our foundation and basis, can help you parse files. Okay, put them in a list and list all the files there. Okay, now with that being done, let's go ahead and do some really interesting stuff. Let's go and analyze what's in a CSV file. Okay, that's a very common thing in data science where you need to analyze what's in a CSV or in an Excel spreadsheet or whatever. So let's go ahead. We're going to do this thing called import pandas as PD. And what is this? This is a thing where we import a file library, a library, but it's a file that has a bunch of functions and whatnot. And what this does is, right, so this import pandas as PD, meaning we're going to give it the nickname. We're going to give pandas library the nickname of PD, so we don't have to type pandas every time. That's a nice, neat little trick, so that you don't have to worry about doing that. Okay, so moving on, we have let me pull up my notes here. Okay, with pandas imported as PD, we're gonna make something called a variable again. That variable is going to store this thing called, it's going to store whatever gets generated by this function within the pandas library. Again, we call it PD for short. It's this thing called read_CSV. What it does is it pulls in a CSV file and makes a list. Really, it makes a data frame. Okay, it makes a data frame. A data frame is basically like a spreadsheet, but specifically for data manipulation in Python pandas library. Okay, so what we'll do is open double quotes, paste the location of our data sheet. Now there is a data sheet online. I mean, our CSV. There is one online as just HTTPS location, but you can just as well do this on for a local file. Okay. Then we're going to print. Oh, what's going to happen is once this imports the .csv information, it's going to store it in a data frame of sorts and then dump that data frame into this variable called data. All right, just like the variable x, right? But x is an integer up there. All right, next we're going to print the information that's inside this data frame called data. How do we do that? You type data.head. Data frames have different things in them, like a head, property, and all that stuff for data frames that allow you to get certain information out of them. Okay. Once we do that, hit the shift and enter, and notice what happens. It produces the information that was pulled in from the CSV, dumped into the data frame, and stored there in rows and columns. Fantastic. So now you know how to pull in data. This is a very common thing that I do in data science all the time, data analysis for the power grid. Okay, because I would do it on an electrical engineering problem. All right, now the last piece of code is, oh, so congratulations, you know how to import a CSV file. Okay, you can also do that with Excel file. Now the next line, a bit of code is for you to graph some information. Once you pull in data, you need to be able to process it and visualize it as a data scientist. So what we're going to do is do a matplotlib. We're going to get a library that is very popular in Python and the data science realm, and it's this library that has many different data plotting functions, and it's called matplotlib. Now it has a subset of functions called pyplot. Pyplot is where we do a lot of that plotting, okay? Plotting, okay. And then we're gonna give it a nickname, import that pyplot as a .plt. We'll just call it PLT for short. And then we're going to start plotting a graph. Here we have a number of functions. There's like plotting, all the stuff. Just ignore all that. This .plt has a function called plot. All you have to do is open parentheses and give it a list, okay, like we did earlier, for our x values on the x-axis. So this is the x-axis we're putting this list onto. Then for our y-axis, we put in another list of values. This is actually an array, but anyway, or it looks like an array to me, a list of integers for the y-axis. So you want the x and y data. Now, the axis is not visible, but the data is put in there. We're also going to plot and label. We're going to access the plot library, and we're going to, or functions, and we're going to label the x-axis with calling it x-axis in double quotes. See that? And in parentheses. You can use single quotes as well. I don't think it'll matter, but I like to use double quotes. Next, let's put a name on the y-axis. We'll say it's plot.ylabel. It's a function where you put a text string to name that y-axis. Then the plot, we want a title on this plot, okay? It's called plot.title. And well, it's not called plot.title, it's actually pyplot.title, but we're calling it .plt. All right, open parentheses, open double quotes, simple plot. Okay, that'll be the title of our plot. Now we need to show the plot. We need to show it. So there's this other function called show. Open parentheses, and now we're ready to display the graph. Hold down the shift key, hit enter, and voila, boom. We are good. Look at that. So congratulations. You just learned how to calculate, automate, analyze, and even visualize data in Python. This is supposed to be in 10 minutes, but at least it's under 25 minutes. Most people never really get this far in long tutorials because it's a bunch of like information that takes too long to get to the point. Like, how do I make it useful, right? If you want more practical, straight to the point Python lessons for AI and data science, hit subscribe right now, and I'll show you more where that came from. Thanks for watching.